Hey everyone, today I wanted to talk about a very influential weapon in the competitive Team Fortress 2 landscape. One that I think is actually kind of cringe and maybe too strong. And that is the Sandvich for heavy. So yeah, let's get into things. So for starters, as we can see, eating a sandwich now. It heals you to full HP, which obviously is very valuable in a setting where, or a game even where there's just not many sources of healing, right? Teams are basically required to have a med. Not just basically, they are, not literally, but if you don't have a med, you lose. Basically is the short of it. And yeah, obviously having access to just immediate healing is super valuable in that sense. Obviously you can't get Ubered with a Sandvich, at least not yet, but yeah, nonetheless, healing quite important. So that is just the first sort of aspect of it. But there's also a lot of different bugs associated with it. And you're going to see a lot of that in this footage as well, where for some reason, eating the sandwich at full HP doesn't even use it. So you essentially have infinite HP access, which is a horrible bug and probably enough to warrant a ban to begin with. I guess part of the reason that people are allowed to play with it is that it's, just on a class that's pretty niche, like heavy. Nevertheless, we will continue. So, should mention as well, it's a pretty popular unlock, just in general. As you can see there, applying some healing to a teammate. Something that probably only a med should be able to do, but whatever. It is quite a popular unlock, and the only unlock to have its own official video from Valve with Meet the Sandwich, which is quite impressive. So it's got an impressive resume, to be sure. But yeah, in a competitive specific context, what is the Sandwich doing? Well, for starters, heavy is a class that's usually played on last. 95% of the time you're going to see a heavy, it'll be defending last. And I think I'm changing my loadout at the moment. Yeah, in an Uber disad situation, anytime that you're expected to get pushed into, so that can be Uber disad, that can be the temporary player disad. Let's say you lost a fight pretty poorly on second and you still have spawners and you're expecting the other team to push into your last. Try and take advantage of that timing window of that player advantage. Times like those makes a lot of sense to have a heavy up. Full Uber disad, when you're expecting the other team to Uber into your last, you'll often see a heavy, if not instantly, then at least being switched to from the engineer, because the sentry is quite important. Yeah, so those are the times that you'll typically see a heavy, and obviously having a sandwich is quite nice there. Actually, there's many cases. I remember a bot mode clip on Villa, it was, where because the sandwich gives you so much healing that you can kind of just tank damage on an already tanky class. So you can, in some cases, just face tank an Uber with a sandwich, which is really valuable. And especially valuable considering that for some reason a lot of players seem to think that the way you're supposed to play heavy in sixes is you just take the Uber in your face and die for it, which in my opinion, on any class, dying for an Uber is not really that worth on last. And namely, that's going to be heavy and pyro. Soldier as well, sacking for the Uber when they're in the door, not very valuable. Sacking for the Uber, getting the force and dying if they're in lobby, then maybe. But yeah, good teams will absolutely take advantage of that pick and still be able to convert their Uber in most circumstances. Because a lot of Ubers are able to convert just by taking out the gun and getting a good post-Uber positioning, let alone getting a pick on top of that. So nevertheless, the fact that the sandwich lets you just tank Ubers, very, very valuable, and makes defending last that much easier. One thing I should mention as well that is also in the bugged category is the fact that with heavy, you can use the sandwich and the eating of it and the sound to basically mask voice lines. And by doing so with the dispenser command, like put a dispenser here, then if you cancel it at the right time, it sounds like Heavy's saying Pootis and then eating the sandwich, which is not only like a bug that probably shouldn't be allowed, but on top of that, well, I guess I should, for starters, kind of talk about the context of voice cancellation in competitive play, because it does happen. Namely, Med is the one that you're going to see it the most on because of Uber. So as a medic, when you get Uber charged, your character just says, I'm fully charged, and that can be heard by the opposing team, so they can know that you have Uber. But if you do another voice command, I think like Jeers or something like that, Med has access to voice commands that are pretty quiet, or you can just be calling for Med on top of it, because Meds will often just call for Med often. Then you can basically cancel out that fully charged voice command, and as a result, the opponent doesn't have that valuable info. Or, better yet, or not better yet, but as an accessory to that, you can, do a fake Uber bind. You can have your meds say that you're fully charged at any Uber percent. So if you are slight disad and you're worried the other team might push, then you can maybe convince them that you actually got Uber and were building quite well, and then disincentivize the push as a result. The other example being on Engineer. Less common, but obviously sentries are really, really important on last holds, especially, well, disad and evens, but the only time you're going to really be moving a gun is on even Ubers. So if you, as the engineer, pick up the gun to move it somewhere, and you hear the other team hears the NG call like moving out or placing a sentry or whatever, then they know in that window when the sentry is being constructed, they don't have a gun that can deny a bomb. It's obviously very strong, and they can just rip a sack in that timing just because you're giving them that information. So as an engineer, masking those calls can be quite nice as well. However, it kind of takes a new approach with heavy and being able to say Pootis, because for starters, it's like a funny word, and obviously that can be really disruptive. Like what is... I guess it's very frustrating to play against a heavy who, for example, Pootis cancels, and then people start laughing in the like Discord call or the mumble or whatever setting you're using to communicate with your team. And if people start laughing there, then it's going to be harder to hear legitimate comms, and obviously it's very disruptive. And yeah, it's definitely an underhanded strategy, I would say. And I haven't even talked about heavy pushing into last, which is definitely rarer than a heavy defending last, obviously. It's a slow class with a lot of HP, so makes more sense to have it defending last, where you can easily switch on and off of the class rather than having to really deal with his major downside of his slow movement speed on a rollout, for example, to get him into position. But sometimes the timing works out. One such example, Gully Wash is a common map for this for a number of reasons. For starters, it's very fast mid to last, and also a fast rollout, I should mention as well. From the forwards you get when your team has second and last, you just go through big door, through lobby, and then you're there. So the heavy slow movement speed, not as much of a problem in a mid to last scenario on Gully Wash. And also the last is very small, so you don't have to worry about the damage fall off from your limited range minigun. So having a heavy play the post Uber on bats, for example, or in main or something like that, then you can see the point. You can just be applying a lot of pressure and damage. And obviously, like, heavies are difficult to deal with defensively and like on last. So dealing with an offensive heavy, also very difficult because you don't really want to expend a ton of resources to take out a heavy that's just sitting way back on bats when there might be people pressuring your point, for example, or bombing your med or what have you, things that happen in a post-Uber. So obviously, in that kind of setting, Sandvich also very valuable. For starters, you can throw down the bait Sandvich, which might be attracting a soldier who's quite weak and sees that as a free health pack, only to realize that you set the trap, you're just revved up right next to it, and you didn't notice. Kind of too focused on the Sandvich, and as a result, kind of free kill into last. Among other things, I mean, just getting on the point and then eating your Sandvich can be a little difficult to get on the point just because heavy, slow class. But if you can do that, then just start eating your Sandvich, and it's basically a guaranteed win, which I don't know if that's necessarily fair. Right. What else about the Sandvich? Well, we do know that it is ham because of the heavy voice line. It's got bologna in it as well. Ham and bologna is interesting. I think that's... I don't even know. Is bologna things that people... do people still eat bologna, or is that just like a thing in the past? I don't know. When I go grocery shopping, I don't know if I really see bologna, but granted, I'm not exactly looking for it. And got the olive on the little spear, the toothpick, which is a nice touch for sure. And also heavy... this is an important part as well. Heavy obviously takes advantage of being a large class with a big health pool. So obviously a large class is going to need to eat a lot of calories. So having food available to you to just keep pumping calories and keep your heavy as a big, bulky guy is going to be pretty critical to how the class is played. So yeah, a lot of things just kind of come together to make the Sandvich a very strong unlock for heavy to be using. And so much so that even in a 6's setting, where heavy is such a niche class, the Sandvich is something that is definitely divisive, I would say, controversial, something that a lot of people are going to have opinions on. Yeah. One thing as well I should mention is that demo players, but more specifically demo jumpers, I would say, have an advantage with the Sandvich, because when you're tossing it to yourself, straight up, it's got a similar thing as stickies where, when you shoot, and in the case of the Sandvich, when you throw it, which for starters, maybe it's actually impressive how far heavy can throw that thing. But nevertheless, yet another kind of tick on what makes the Sandvich so strong. So when you throw the Sandvich, similar to when you shoot a pipe or a sticky or something, there's actually a vertical component to the velocity applied to that firing or throwing, so that it actually arcs rather than just kind of flopping out. So if you are on demo, you're familiar with this. If you look straight up and shoot a sticky, it actually goes behind you because that kind of vertical component is still getting applied, but since you're looking up, it's shooting it behind you. Same thing with the Sandvich. So demos who are already familiar with that mechanic and that kind of adjustment are going to have a much better time throwing the Sandvich up to themselves, which, so it's not too surprising to see demo players switch to heavy on last, just because of that advantaged Sandvich tech and being able to more reliably throw it at yourself. The other thing I should mention, and this might be the last thing, I don't know if other things will come to me or not, but as far as friendlies are concerned, Sandvich is really up there because, a big thing, well, the way that you win in a competitive game on 5CP, Conth is going to be a little different application, but 5CP is definitely the more popular of the game modes. You win by capping the other team's control point, or their last specifically. And in order to cap their last, no one else can be standing on it. And there's often an order of operations kind of as far as defending last on Uberdesad goes to make sure the point is covered the whole time. That first defense is often the stickies, and at the very least that slows the scout from just immediately getting on the point while the Uber is going. They kind of have to wait a little bit to at least clear the sticks, or have a soldier shoot a rocket to have the splash damage knock the stickies off the point. Point being that it's going to slow the cap and slow the other team's effort at getting on the cap until maybe post-Uber as the Uber's fading, etc. And then both soldiers are very valuable resources to physically block that point. When the cap time starts coming in, they're going to want to be bombing the player who is capping. And by doing so, you hopefully kill them. And at the very least, you stop the cap long enough for your teammates to set up in a proper position where maybe your demo can start spamming point. And often you want both soldiers doing this, not simultaneously, but one after the other, just to buy as much time as possible. So that's why soldier communication can be quite important on last, sort of talking about who's going when, who goes first, who, if someone eats some damage before the last hold, which one of the reasons why it's so important to stay healthy and stay buffed as a soldier on last and maybe not just be feeding or whatever. Then you can communicate that and your partner can know, okay, I have to stop point first, since my soldier partner cannot. What was I was talking about? Stopping. Yeah, exactly. So as far as friendly tech is concerned, when you basically enable yourself to, demo ended there. When you enable yourself to be a friendly by, crouching. Oh man, my game crashed. Good Lord. When you enable yourself to be a friendly by, crouching with maybe the mittens out or fists or whatever, pull out your sandwich, eat it a couple times, maybe throw it to someone. That's really strong on last because the other team is going to need to either spawn a shortstop scout to push you off the point or roll out a pyro to air blast you off. Both of these options obviously really, really slow, and the other team is usually going to get spawners, and a lot of the time they're going to get Uber by the time that happens. So the fact that you're not allowed to shoot at the friendly heavy on point does make a big difference there. Anyway, I think that's all I have to talk about the Sandvich, why it's so good, why I'm not necessarily a fan. I obviously like using it just because it's so strong. But yeah, it's a buggy weapon, infinite healing, gives healing access to a class that maybe shouldn't have it, etc., etc. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. And thank you all for watching.